Well, the first official day of NFL free agency 2023 has come to a conclusion, and my Carolina Panthers spent majority of their time gathering up offensive talent that will for surely be of service to whomever we choose with the first overall pick to run this offense. And in this video, I'm going to give you all my thoughts, the good, the bad, and everything in between on these three signees, and we're going to get into that right after this.
From the foe, you dig?
Welcome to The Way I See It with Jamario Rashad. This is a Carolina Panthers fan channel. Please do me a favor by hitting the like button, and please make sure you subscribe as I am on my road to 2K. Trying to get this channel popping before the season starts. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the signings. Now, the first player that I would like to discuss is none other than our new tight end, Hayden Hurst, who comes to us by way of the Cincinnati Bengals. Hayden Hurst is 6'4", 250 pounds from Jacksonville, Florida. He was drafted 25th overall in the first round in the 2018 draft from the University of South Carolina. So there is slight local ties there. He isn't from North Carolina, but he definitely played his college ball in the Carolinas. Now, to speak to just how impactful Hayden Hurst was in the 2022 season, although he missed 3 games, he was able to have 52 catches for 414 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he also moved the chains 26 times, gathering 26 first downs. Now, to give you all a little more context just into how good he was, he actually had the 5th highest catch percentage amongst tight ends in 2022 with 76.5%. Now, that is higher than Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, as well as Mark Andrews, just to give you all a better look as to just how sure-handed this guy can be. Now, to move on beyond just the regular season, he was one of the more dominant tight ends that displayed their talents within the playoffs in this past season. Now, in just 3 games, he had 13 catches, 114 yards, 1 touchdown, as well as 7 first downs. Now, to give you all a peek behind the curtain into how that stacks up against the other tight ends that were in the playoffs, that was the 3rd most receiving yards amongst all tight ends in the playoffs, as well as the third most receiving yards and the 3rd most receptions. So he captured both those crowns, and he also kept his hands steady and keeping his catch percentage exactly at 76.5, which was actually one of the highest, top 3 amongst tight ends that actually got 10 or more targets in the playoffs. So Hayden Hurst was an absolute weapon in an already loaded Cincinnati Bengals offense that includes Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd whenever he shows up. All of these guys are included in this offense, but in the playoffs, Joe Burrow looked to go to Hayden Hurst, which gives me confidence that he will be able to come over and continue that effectiveness in this offense. Now, to give you all a little look at just how this guy's numbers stacked up against every single tight end that we had on the roster, not just a particular one, I mean literally every single tight end that we had on the roster. You already know that his stats were 52 catches, 414 yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 first downs. Now, our entire stable of tight ends, be it Ian Thomas, Tommy Tremble, as well as Steven Sullivan, whenever they chose to put him on the field, only had 48 catches for 417 yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 19 first downs. So Hayden Hurst, although he missed 3 games, which means that these stats would have been even higher than they are now, he outplayed every single positional tight end that we had on this team that got meaningful offensive snaps and the opportunity to catch the ball. If all of them were combined into one player, they still wouldn't have a higher Madden overall than Hayden Hurst. So if that reference means anything to you, like, I'm glad that you get it. But if not, I'm just trying to say that they suck they suck pretty much. Our tight ends suck. They don't catch passes, and Hayden Hurst is an immediate upgrade over all of these guys. So I truly believe that he will be a welcome piece for this team. Now, when I look back on his career, he was drafted back in 2018 to the Baltimore Ravens in the same exact draft that they drafted Mark Andrews in the third round in. I didn't go back and look at the game logs to know whether it was just because he was outplayed or whether or not it was due to injury. But they had, I believe, Nick Boyle when they drafted Mark Andrews and him, and he just never really played in his rookie year, and he was outplayed by Mark Andrews in those 2 years. So he goes to Atlanta. They draft Kyle Pitts. They move on after 2 years. He goes to Cincinnati, and now he's here. So although he hasn't found his footing as a All-Pro superstar, guy yet, his draft position, meaning his potential coming out of college, as well as his most recent production, leads me to believe that he could potentially get there and hopefully reach his ceiling within this offense that Frank Reich puts together and be a meaningful piece and a safety blanket for whomever we choose with that first round pick, man. But now we're going to move on to the second player that I want to discuss, be it running back Miles Sanders, who comes to us from the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off of an entire Super Bowl appearance. Now, as of now, the actual numbers for Miles Sanders' contract in terms of compensation, I cannot find as of the recording of this video, but I have seen that it is supposed to be a 4-year deal. Now, Miles Sanders is 5'11", 211 pounds from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was drafted in the second round, 53rd overall in the 2019 draft out of Penn State. He, in fact, was Saquon Barkley's backup. So he may have been drafted a little bit higher if he was the featured back, but just know Saquon was that guy, and he played behind him, and he still was drafted on day 2. Now, in 2022, Miles Sanders had 1,269 yards, 11 touchdowns, 64 first downs. He averaged 5 yards per carry and 75 yards per game. Now, to give you all a little more context to these stats, as anybody that watched the Eagles offense last year knows, Miles Sanders, although he was dynamic within this offense, he didn't even get 50% of the carries, as he did split carries with not only the other running backs that were in the running back room, but Jalen Hurts as well, who nearly had 200 carries of his own. So even having less than 50% of the team carries, having nearly 1,300 yards, over 10 touchdowns, that just shows that with the touches that he was allotted, he was dynamic and just an absolute beast when they did hand the ball off to him. Now, just as I did with Hayden Hurst, I'm going to give you all a little more a look behind the curtain as to how he stacked up against all of our running backs in 2022. Now, compared to our own guys, as I mentioned, nearly 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, 64 first downs. Now, the entire stable of the running backs that we had last year, including the first 5 games that we got out of Christian McCaffrey, equated to 1,893 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 96 first downs. Now, as you can see in my little blurb there at the bottom, Christian McCaffrey, although he was only here for 5 games, accounted for 393 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 20 of those first downs. So if you were to remove the production that we got from Christian McCaffrey and would have just let it be with the guys that we have here, you can see that Miles Sanders himself, similar to how I mentioned Hayden Hurst, was almost as good of a player as the 3 of these other guys combined. Although I currently still am a big fan of D'onta Foreman, and the reports are that although we did make this move, that does not mean that we are completely out on D'onta Foreman. I think, like, the tape shows you, history shows you, if you just turn on the game and look, you would see that Miles Sanders is a better back. He is a more consistent back. He has been a more valued back. It just is what it is. I love D'onta Foreman, and I want him to be a part of this team as well. But Miles Sanders clearly is more accomplished. He is, like, I don't really know what more of a rationale that people need as to why didn't we go get Foreman? It has been reported that we extended a contract to Foreman. He has not accepted. Although we have signed Sanders, that contract that we have extended to Foreman has not been rescinded. It is still out there on the table. But at the end of the day, when the season starts, I expect for Miles Sanders to be the starter, to be running back one, to be the featured guy. So that just is what it is. And these numbers that you see on the screen are why I have so much confidence in saying that Miles Sanders, behind what many people say, or which is probably accurate, was the best O-line in the NFL last year. I'm not saying that we're in any way, shape, or form like parallel or completely comparable to them, but the quick acceleration that I saw in terms of effectiveness and production from the offensive line that we got last year gives me confidence that he will be able to put up at least comparable numbers behind our offensive line that is pretty steady now that we have re-signed Bozeman. Icky's coming back for year 2. Christensen. We have a great line. So I think Miles Sanders will be able to duplicate the numbers that we saw from him with the Philadelphia Eagles, man. Now, the last player I want to discuss is one that was actually announced yesterday, but I didn't think that he needed his own video. I don't think that many people cared that this happened. But we have to talk about the addition of quarterback Andy Dalton. According to reports, I believe he signed a 2-year, $10 million deal with the Carolina Panthers. And there was a lot of fan overreaction on social media where I saw a lot of people, either they were just willingly being ignorant or they literally I guess they're just not that knowledgeable of football. They were assuming that this means that the Carolina Panthers are choosing to go with Andy Dalton, that he may present some type of potential threat to whichever rookie QB. That's all BS. We need a quarterback to be the backup. We don't need a bridge guy. We're not at number 9 anymore. We moved up to number 1. Whoever we draft, his ass is getting on the field. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to have a veteran behind them that could come in and play effectively. Even beyond that, the impact and the reason why everybody feels so confident in Josh McCown as a quarterback coach is because of all the experience that he has in the NFL. If you were to look at the guys that we had on the roster these last couple of years, none of them could speak to as much NFL experience, even up into making the playoffs, having 10-plus win seasons. None of that can be true more so than what you have with Andy Dalton. Despite how people feel about him now, he has seen relative success during his time in the NFL, and more so than what he could have got out of Baker Mayfield. He damn sure couldn't have got it out of PJ Walker, and I guess kind of sort of maybe out of Baker Mayfield, but who knows if Baker is a mentor. You need somebody that can actually come in and be the voice of reason, a big brother, somebody that can actually give insightful advice, a person that has been there and done that. And Andy Dalton provides that to the locker room. He also provides that to the QB room, in addition to the knowledge that whomever the quarterback is going to be, CJ Stroud, would get from Josh McCown. So I believe that this is a positive signing for the Carolina Panthers. But finally, I believe that this was just a clear indication that Sam Darnold probably just did not want to come back to the Carolina Panthers. It was reported that he is in San Francisco for a 1-year, I believe, $3.5 million deal. We were in contract talks with him to potentially come back for a year. I just think he just washed his hands with the entire situation, and I don't really think we could be mad at him. We can be mad about his play, but just as much as we wanted him out of here, he deserves to take his ass elsewhere. So I think that's why we ended up with Dalton and not Darnold, man. But with that being said, those are my thoughts on our signings of the first day of free agency, man. You all leave your comments down below. What do you all think of the guys we signed? Good, bad, indifferent, whatever you all think, make sure to leave your comments down there. And with that being said, you already know I'm Jamario Rashad. This is the way I see it, and I'm out.
Peace.